welcome to the latest edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner. My name is Paul Thomas. Joining us is Judy Donegan, Marilee Rendulich, and Thaddeus Paul Hamas. On to the next amendment, which deals with term limits for judges and justices. I'm calling this Amendment 32. All Supreme Court justices and federal judges nominated by the president and confirmed by Congress shall serve no more than 18 years in that capacity and are subject to impeachment by majority vote of Congress for ethics violations and high crimes and misdemeanors, including perjury for testimony given at confirmation hearings. If I could get Nancy Pelosi to answer my call, I would immediately say we need to impeach that Aileen Cannon for, if no other reason, for the threat to national security that woman has just allowed, just so Trump would not have any reputational harm. Yeah. Judy, I'm going to let you go last. So I'm going to start Marilee off with this one. Term limits for judges. I mean, if you're in a position as a judge and you do your 18 years and you're a really good judge, then maybe you could get nominated to be a justice on the Supreme Court. I don't know. I just think that, these lifetime appointments have really screwed us up. I look at this legal system as so corrupt now that it doesn't really function at all. So, Marilee, what's your take on that?
I'm sorry, I muted myself because my lawn guy's out there.
Well, okay. Well, you're unmuted now, so go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound like I'm disagreeing with you, but I don't know that term limits is exactly the problem. What I feel is a problem with our judges and our justice system is certainly they need a defined code of conduct that would result not just in impeachment, but immediate disbarment or loss of job if they do anything like lie in a hearing. But they absolutely needed a code of conduct that's in writing and that specifies what the expectations are. They also need standards for job qualification. They need minimum standards every step of the way for every judicial post. I don't have a legal background, but I worked in eminent domain, and I have been in the courtroom with judges who don't have a clue what the law is framed for. And it's just rather remarkable to sit there and see how they lean one way or the other. There's no requirement to review what you learned in law school, before you hear a case. I think that's exactly what happened with this thing in Florida. I mean, where was the pressure? How does somebody rule that way? It's just beyond me. When you have highly sensitive material sitting in a clubhouse. So to me, there's a more of a problem of people not being qualified to fill these posts. These are gifts, they're payments, they're bribes. I'm not sure what but I don't feel that they fill the standard of what we expect for our justices.
And you think we should be able to get rid of them a lot easier?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There are no real written standards, are there?
Well, I think there are ethical standards all the way up to the Supremes, but they don't have anything in the Supremes that, like Clarence Thomas and Jimmy Thomas could just do what they want, try to overturn an election and be voted. Well, we don't want to get into that. Thaddeus, what do you think about the judges?
Well, in my opinion, I thought that 18 years tenure is overly generous, but that's just my opinion. The idea of a lifetime tenure is one of the problems that we have, and it's a system that we have seen the extreme conservative wing of the Republican Party has gamed. And from what I can see, it is a system gaming that has been going on for 50 years. And they got what they wanted. It took 50 years to get it, but they got what they wanted with a supermajority on the Supreme Court that is going to do whatever the most conservatives want done. And this does not work for the people of the United States. It just works for the for the elite and the special interests. So yeah, I'm all for as Mara Lee said, standards of qualification for these high-level judgeships, especially. If you see a judge in the local town court not knowing what the law is and screwing things up because of it, how much more damage can somebody do as a federal appellate judge or a Supreme Court judge? And also standards for ethical behavior. I think that's already been said, that it's more than about damn time that ethical standards be imposed. It's a pity that people who take on such an august position need to be checked and balanced. But it is one part of the government that against which there is no check or balance, and that's the Supreme Court. So yeah, I'm all for it.
And I
Okay,
was thinking too, maybe a forced retirement age might be a better way to establish those boundaries. I don't know.
I think that's probably something that should be imposed as well. Judy, this is a profession that you have belonged to and have loved, and I don't know what you see now is what's happening, but it wasn't really happening this way in the office where you were. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, you are. And I have so many mixed feelings about this. I don't have a problem with either a required retirement age, that's not a bad idea, or an 18-year term for judges. I think, and Eileen Cannon, she's just thrown a monkey wrench into all of this because of, there are minimum qualifications. You have to have been a lawyer for so long, and you have to have done certain things before you can be nominated. And I don't offhand know exactly what those are. But, you can't police stupid, I guess. And so what I was going to say is a long lifetime appointment or an 18-year appointment gives a honest judge, and I do still believe there are some, the ability to make the unpopular decision that needs to be made. Desegregating the schools. I worked for a guy, a district judge in Wisconsin, who once said that there are just issues that are too hard for a legislature, for politicians. They can't do it. And then you go to the federal judges, and this is a long time ago, back when things were better. You go to federal judges who you hope will have the courage to do the right thing because they don't have to worry as much about public pressure and they don't have to worry about being reelected. But what's happened now, in my opinion, that's been turned upside down. Samuel Alito doesn't care what he's doing to the country or what the public perception is of what he's doing. On the other hand, I don't think we should forget that 60 district court judges ruled against Trump and all of his nonsense on the basis of the last election. You get Eileen Cannon, And, that is much more prominent, much more obvious how wrong that was. But there were 60 of them, that even Trump appointees, who did the right thing. So I have, I don't know. I don't mind 18-year term limits. I think that they probably shouldn't hold the job forever. And there obviously should be there should be ethical standards for the Supreme Court as well as the lower courts, where there is a judicial code of conduct for lower courts. So I have, I guess, short of 18 years, I'm okay with that. Other than that, it kind of, I guess I'm defensive a little bit of the good judges that are working hard out there, and do know what they're doing. They make mistakes, like all of us, but they're working hard and they're trying to do the right thing, whether we would agree with them or not.
Well, you know what though, Judy, if those judges trying to do the right thing, they're not going to get caught up in ethical misbehavior.
Right.
But what this Eileen Cannon is doing, I think, by holding up the investigation, when you have 43 files that are labeled top secret classified that are empty, and you can't even move forward in trying to ask Trump, why are these files empty, or who has these files? You can't even ask him that, and we don't even know what they could be files that have to do with nuclear defense systems. I mean,
what do you do though, Paul, with the renegade judge like her?
Well, I would, if I was Nancy Pelosi or she had my ear, I'd say start impeachment proceedings right now for the reason for national defense, because you're allowed to impeach judges whenever they do something that is horrible. And I think that this was horrible. Amending the Constitution. It's a really hard thing to do. I'm calling this for Amendment 33. Article 5 and Article 7 are hereby rescinded and replaced by, quote, Congress shall propose amendments to this Constitution, and upon passage of said proposed amendments by majority vote, the proposal shall be submitted for ratification to the people to vote during an even year when presidential and or congressional elections are scheduled. A 2/3 majority of the voting citizenry will be required for any said proposal to become an amendment to the United States Constitution. I don't know. I just think the people should have more of a say. A lot of the states have their proposals ratified by the people for their constitution, the state constitution. So this way, it's the legislatures of the 3/4 of the states that are. And I guess back whenever they put this constitution together, they thought the legislatures were all that. But I don't think they're all that these days. So what do you think about that, Judy? Amending the Constitution by having proposals by Congress, and then the people make the final say.
Who are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Oh.
You, Judy.
Okay. Well, I think you're making it too easy on Congress and impossible for an amendment to pass 3/4 of the population. I don't know. I don't have a problem with thinking about how to change the way amendments are ratified. But I'm not sure I agree with your solution, Paul.
Okay. Do you have one?
No.
Okay. All right. Marilee. Actually, it wasn't 3/4. It was 2/3. 2/3 of the
Oh, I'm
vote.
sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
2/3. Still too many.
Okay. Marilee, do you have any better way to amend the Constitution? Or are you okay with what we have now?
I thought I was okay. this is not my area of expertise at all, but I mean, I think what you proposed was interesting. So, and it's not 2/3 of the population, it's 2/3 of the people actually voted,
Well,
right?
2/3 of the voting population, correct? Yes.
I mean, I think it's doable. I mean, I can see that with the propositions, because we have propositions on our ballots all the time, and we can get massive turnouts one way or the other, in the 2/3 or more percentile one way, not always, it's more of a majority, but I think it's possible that it can be done. But
Well, your state kind of went referendum crazy there for a while with like recall elections, and wasn't there a proposal back in the 80s or something that made taxes just like impossible to collect, or
Prop 13 still in effect.
oh, Prop 13, yeah. Well, how'd you get around that? I mean, California's economy was booming
Sales
there.
taxes, and it's just, it's basically levy, how you can levy on property taxes. So you buy a real estate and you can only increase that property tax no more than 2% per year. And so it saves mostly seniors.
Uh-huh.
They've been in a home, and so they're not paying current market value on their taxes. But yeah, so we get taxed every other which way. Gasoline and sales tax.
It's still a highly taxed state,
Since
California.
tax.
Mhm.
All right,
If
Thaddeus.
you get a little more choice in it,
Okay.
How would you amend the Constitution, Thad?
Okay, well, I like the general idea, but as we've been talking, and as Judy pointed out, getting 2/3 majority of the entire voting population of the country might be just a little bit cumbersome. I don't see it happening ever. So it would actually turn an amendment into an impossibility. However, if you change the arithmetic just a little, and you say that you put it up to a popular vote in all the states, and if there is a majority achieved in the vote in 2/3 of the states, then it can pass. See what I mean? Not a general majority of the entire country, or 2/3 majority of the country, but a simple majority in each of 2/3 of the states.
Okay, let me push back on that. I don't know if you saw how many states, red states, went for Trump as opposed to the blue states that went for Biden, but there are way more red states that went for Trump. What happened was that the blue states that went for Biden had more electoral college votes, and that's why Biden ended up winning the electoral college this time. But if you look at the swath of states along the South and up through the Midwest, all the way to the West Coast, you see a lot of red. Well, you see a lot of red. So that's why I would have a problem with that. I would say that the people should have more of a say than the states themselves, because we're back to my original argument about the states that have so few people and then have just as much power as the states with huge numbers of people.
Yeah, I don't have a comeback on that.
This deals with organized religion and religious practices. Amendment 34. Every citizen is entitled to freely engage in religious practices of their choosing. Religious practice discriminating against or restricting the rights or freedoms of others is not a protected practice. All religious organizations operating in the commerce of the secular state are hereby subject to the laws of the state, including payment of lawful taxes, property, income, and corporate. I just heard a few weeks ago that the Family Research Council is now a church, according to the IRS, even though they don't have any worship services or anything of that nature. So Mayor Lee, what do you feel about coming down on restricting religious practices whenever they go against the rights of or discriminate against people that are other than who are in their congregation?
Okay, I am all in on this one.
Oh, okay. Do we have total agreement on one? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is just talk about, what may have been a good idea, centuries ago, totally gone awry with this. There's so much political posturing. There's so much dishonesty. These mega churches. I also would like to take it one step further. I don't think the tithing to these churches should be considered a tax deductible donation either. I know some churches do really good things, and I don't want to disrespect that because they do. And I think that can be examined, in the charitable process. But to just unilaterally make these one church after another qualifying under this tax exemption, I think is absurd. And,
So it would be easier.
that it generates for the Catholic Church, the mega churches, the Mormon Church. It's unconscionable.
It would be easier for these charitable or organizations of these churches to be tax exempt under their charity operation.
Exactly.
Not the whole church. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I won one for Mayor Lee finally. All right. Judy, what's your view on these religious organizations and how I think they should be held more accountable?
Well, I agree with that. I would put in an amendment, a number of things, though. And I would include, again, that there should be no established religion. The government shall not establish a religion. Not that we're really doing that now, but we're trying, I think. And I would make explicit that there's a separate a strict separation of church and state, sort of on the hope to stop funding religious schools, for instance.
Mhm.
I would make, on the issue of taxation, I'm not sure how you would qualify that, but I would make religious organizations subject to taxation, except for their charitable, whatever,
Right.
however you'd want to phrase that. And then that all people are free to exercise the religion of their choice so long as it doesn't infringe rights of others.
Mhm.
And that, I don't know if that would get at that football coach in Washington or not, praying on the 50-yard line. But he was, I think, encroaching on the freedom of his students not to have to participate. So that would be one of the other things that I would want to somehow make clear. So I would want about 4 things in that amendment.
Mhm. Okay, Thaddeus, you have been an employee of religious organizations all your life. So you have a very insider's look at this particular issue. What say you?
Well, number one, I'm all for taxation of religious organizations. The fact that they're getting away without paying any taxes at all is a crime. But I was thinking that I have a little bit of a problem with giving tax exemption to their charitable organizations. And I say this because it's just in the news about a week or so ago, where an employee of Catholic Relief Services, which is a charitable arm of the Roman Catholic Church, they had a problem disciplining one of their employees who happens to be in a same-sex relationship. And they were, denying him some employee benefits because of their religious preferences. So that stuff would have to be ironed out to keep your tax exempt status for this. You can't run it the same way as you run your church. So that's one thing. Now, as far as public expressions of religion, I think that they were on the right track, and the right wing has been trying to backtrack this for years about having religious symbols on public property. And I say, that needs to be defined as it's a no-no. And public prayer, if it's going to happen at all, should not have any reference to any particular specific denomination. And toward that end, I would say, okay, if your deliberative body wants to have a prayer at the beginning of their session, that's fine, as long as it is offered by a member of the body. A senator or a congressman will stand up and, call for divine inspiration, but a public prayer, even in a classroom, which is a public place, should not be conducted by a representative of a denomination or a clergy person. So those things have to be, there's a lot of statutory stuff that would have to go into making this amendment work. But I'm all in favor of it. We don't have to give special primacy to religions, especially when one religion is going to take over, as I think we have two denominations that are vying for religious supremacy over the United States over the issue of abortion. So we have to kind of put the religionists in their place and follow the dictates of the Christian Bible, where it says, if you're going to pray, go into your room and close the door and pray in secret. And you can tell that to that football coach any day.
Yeah. Okay, the next amendment, 35, definition of personhood. All references to persons regarding rights elucidated in this Constitution shall include males, females, and any and all other genders a person designates itself to be. Any discrimination of any person due to gender, race, ethnicity, or religious affiliation is prohibited. We are going through a lot of turmoil over gender identification these days. So I thought this might be able to address it. Thaddeus?
Okay, I'm all in with you, but while we're specifying, all genders, we need to also specify all ages, and that is all ages between birth and death. And I say that because there have been bills in various states to establish personhood at the moment of conception, which it flies in the face of at least the Jewish standard, which states that life begins when the person begins to breathe, which is a few moments after birth. The rights of personhood are not conferred on the baby who is still in the womb. And I think we need to have that age in there, and age too, because we don't want to say personhood is men and women or of whatever gender, but also children and, the aged and everything. All people of all ages are afforded the rights of personhood.
Judy, Thaddeus brings up a great point. Age is definitely something that needs to be addressed, but I'm not seeing how that debate is anywhere near close to being resolved. So what do you think about that?
About age being
Well, about that, as well as the text that I read about the designation of personhood.
I mean, I get this idea of protecting gender identification because that seems to be a huge issue right now. That is his idea of putting children in. I'm going to sound like those paternalistic people that wanted to protect women. But I think that I think we don't want to give, children exactly the same rights as adults. I mean, they are persons protected under the Constitution, but anyhow, I'd have
Well,
to.
I tell you what, I was spent the day with my 3-year-old granddaughter today, and she does not need to have full autonomy in her decision-making process. Yes.
I know, even when they're
And my
13.
wife will agree with that completely.
Even at 13, where my grandchildren, they definitely don't need to have those rights. But I get the idea of protecting gender identification right now, and all of those other things, some of which are protected by the present Constitution. But so I agree with it. I would just have to think about it a little more.
Okay, Marilee, regarding Thaddeus's point, you feel free to comment on the age thing, but how about this gender identification, protecting those rights?
I thought it was a very refreshing amendment, and I appreciated it very, very much. I hadn't really thought about the age thing, and I think that's a very good point, Thaddeus, because, but how you could implement that, I'm not really sure, but I was thinking what would be nice is if this could actually be incorporated into the Equal Rights Amendment. And
oh, right, yeah.
Not just women, these rights belong to everybody, regardless of these circumstances or.
Well, yeah. The thing about the Equal Rights Amendment is just this is very short thing about because of their sex. I think they say just because of their sex. But I don't know. I kind of think this needs to be additionally addressed beyond the Equal Rights Amendment, unless it could be added to that text. Yeah. Okay. Now, this next amendment, which is my 36th amendment, says the 23rd Article Amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed, which basically says the DC is like a special circumstance. And I don't think that it should be a special circumstance whenever you're denied the right to vote for a president because the Electoral College doesn't recognize your state, your body, your population, your geography as a state. Therefore, your vote for president can't be counted. So that's basically what I'm saying there. Any comments on that?
Yep.
Go ahead, Thad.
This one, I had to get out my Constitution book and look up the amendment and say, what does it say? And it has to do with DC sending electors to the Electoral College. So this is part and parcel of, if we're going to get rid of the Electoral College, we've got to get rid of that amendment because it's a moot point. DC is not going to send electors if there is no Electoral College. Something else needs to be done for the District of Columbia to make sure that, especially in issues of voting rights, the people who live there have as much right to vote as the people in the other 50 states. So making it a 51st state might be an issue. I know that there's a bill flying around in Washington right now to try to do that. But yeah, I can't argue with getting rid of that previous amendment, because all it is just basically housekeeping for the electoral.
For the other one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Housekeeping, right? Yeah, I try to be sort of a little comprehensive here, and I'm saying this, but then I let this other language set, which contradicts it, so I have to get rid of that too. Okay, Judy, Washington D.C. Getting rid of the 12th Amendment or the 23rd Amendment. That okay with you?
That's fine, but I think that it's kind of like what Thaddeus said. They have representatives in Congress, but they can't vote. Is that right?
Right.
So I think that that doesn't seem right. The population of DC is as great as some of the small states. So, for instance, but so maybe, I guess it's not a state because it's supposed to be neutral. The source of the government for the whole country. But it seems like somehow those people should be allowed representation in Congress.
Okay, Mary Lee?
Right, this did confuse me. So you meant to just eliminate the electoral vote anyway, and so that's why this is in here?
Yeah,
Because
kind of.
otherwise, how do they get?
Housekeeping. Yeah.
That's all, okay.
Yeah.
Because I agree completely. They are so it seems so unfair that they don't get appropriate representation like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And, if they do it as a state, or if they do it, divvy them up to the adjoining states, Virginia and Maryland, whatever. But I feel like their population should be included in the voting representation. So.